Welcome to Native Yoga Toddcast. So happy you are here. My goal with this channel is to bring inspirational speakers to the mic in the field of yoga, massage, bodywork, and beyond. Follow us at Native Yoga and check us out at nativeyogacenter.com. All right, let's begin. Hello, my name is Todd McLaughlin. This is Native Yoga Toddcast, and today I have John Coleman with me here at the studio. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Todd. Thanks for asking. Thanks so much for sitting down with me today.
Yeah.
You know, I've been coming to your studio for almost 10 years now. I've been listening to all your podcasts, and I've really been wanting to ask you some questions, the same kind of questions that maybe you ask the other people, so your listeners and your students get to know you a little better.
Oh, thanks, John.
So I'm kind of curious. You know, you've got this beautiful yoga community, this beautiful studio. How'd you get started?
Wow, great question. To take you to the starting point of my journey, obviously, if you're operating heavy machinery, don't close your eyes. But if you have a chance to close your eyes, I'm going to take you to a moment where I'm lying on my back in about 1 inch of water, and I'm about 14 years old. I had just tried to jump from about 30 feet on a rope swing here in Tequesta, Florida, and it didn't go so well, and I fell all the way from the top and landed on the way down. My head hit a tree, which flipped me around, and I landed flat on my back in about 1 inch of water, right in between these roots that were sticking up, like stalagmite looking roots coming up out of the sand. And I hit so hard that I nearly died.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience.
I had a near-death experience. And I knew I could feel this is it. I knew it. I was like, this is it.
So you kind of knew at that point that you could die, that this could be the end of it.
Yeah. I felt like I was leaving my body. You know, you get that sort of awareness of like, whoa, I'm slowly withdrawing from my body.
Whoa.
And at that time, my friend's brother went, oh my gosh, look at all the blood coming out of his head.
Bleeding. Oh, geez, so you're bleeding also.
And I opened my eyes and I put my hand up and I felt the back of my head and I looked at my hand, I saw the blood. And I again just put my arm down and I couldn't move. And I just had this feeling of, it was quite peaceful. I hit so hard.
Oh my God.
That it literally knocked the crap out of me. And, so to fast forward, the ambulance came and got on the boat and put me on a stretcher and got me back on the ambulance and took me to the Jupiter Medical Center, in which case the doctors stitched me up and told my parents, who were, so sad when they came to the hospital because, of course, they said in the morning, whatever you do, Todd, don't go to the rope swing today. So I was a bit of a rebel, and
tough way to get caught.
Yeah, tough way to get caught. Good response. And it took me about 2 to 3 weeks before I could start to walk again, and it was a really bad accident.
Wow.
And I was very lucky. It was a miracle that I did not have a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
And that I rehabbed as relatively quick as I did, but having such a close call at that point in my life, it knocked the crap out of me, but it also knocked some sense into me.
So when now we're like 2 weeks down the road after this accident, are you still aware that at some point you could have died?
Yeah, my recollection here is at the time my family were just about ready to go on vacation the next day, so that was part of the thing that was a bummer for everybody, my family. And so they took me with them anyway. And I just remember posting up on a couch and just having a miserable time trying to move, right? And but I was so young that the body is so resilient. And, you make your way again. And it wasn't, I didn't break my spine. I didn't have spinal cord injury. And I think that was the catalyst, because when I try to go back into my past and think, why did I do what I did in my life? I took the road less traveled. I traveled really far and wide, but I took the harder route, in my opinion, to get to where I am now.
That's what your whole life you're saying, that you think you always took a more difficult road, or the ones that nobody else traveled anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really pushed the envelope. I think that experience, at the time, I don't know that I could have later than when I was 18 and I started, venturing out and traveling around the world. I don't think at that point I was relating back to that specific accident as the catalyst, but now where I am now, how my body is now, how my mental emotional body is now, and I really process all of the experiences of my life to try to come up with this sort of like clear picture now. That definitely seems like a good starting point, and where that had a role in my sort of spiritual awakening and my seeking, my really intense seeking for finding some sort of coming home feeling, or finding my connection with my higher power, and that sort of that journey that I've taken. So, where I had grown up with a relatively religious and spiritual background, growing up Catholic, and I always I read the Bible from cover to cover, and I was a deep seeker in terms of my Catholic and Christian background. And when I went to University of Florida in Gainesville, and I met the Hare Krishnas when I was 18, that for me was a big turning point, because I was so curious. I always had this feeling there has to be more. I always really wanted to find the answers to the big questions, the questions that everybody told me you can't find those answers. Where did we come from? Everyone's going to say, we'll have no idea where we came from. There's great theories about where we came from, but how can I truly know the answer to that? What came first, the chicken or the egg? These are questions like, how would I know? How could we figure that question out?
Is that what put you on the path, Todd? Is that what got you to leave the house and head to college and maybe see the Hare Krishnas, move in with the Hare Krishnas? Was it that spiritual seeking?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
When I look back, for sure. Because, I also had experienced a fair amount of intense trauma as a child.
Okay.
And I think that played a big role into my recklessness in my physical adventures. That did not stop with the rope swing. That continued on
maybe we
much
get into
longer
some of that
into
a
life.
little later. Huh?
Yeah. And, but I think that had a very big impact in my search for finding my home. And I know we have our physical home, like our house, and we have our physical, the home that we think of as like, that's where I live. But I really wanted to get a little bit more into like finding my true home and what my true calling was. And I was very unsure as to what that was. I battled with some pretty severe depression in my high school years. Yeah. So that really served to kind of push me to find my own answers. And I went at it with a relatively reckless attitude, in the sense of that I wasn't going to give up, and I definitely did not want to take the traditional route. And so when I went to college, it was a lot of kind of pushing for me to go, and that would be the only way that I could potentially succeed in life. And so I gave it a try. And I think my initial discovery of yoga at age 18 that caused me to go, whoa, okay, I got to go to India. I also had this really strong feeling that I really wanted to go to Africa. I had a strong pull for Africa.
What gave you that interest? What did you know about Africa that said, gee, I want to go there?
Oh, so when I was in high school, I started hanging out with this guy from Barbados that was a Rastafarian, or a Rasta dude, Rastaman.
Yeah.
And and I always felt incredibly inspired by Bob Marley's music.
Okay.
So, and I had gotten influenced heavily from like the 60s music era, and I was a big fan of the Grateful Dead and went and saw the Dead, and I kind of got into that whole like hippie Rasta culture, so to speak. And I guess you had
the dreadlocks at this point?
I grew dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I had a big old burly beard when I was 16. When I was walking through Jupiter High School with my Birkenstocks and beard, kids would joke around like, "Oh, there's Jesus! Look at Jesus!" And it was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, I was like, "All right, if that's, I guess that's a good role model to live up to."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so, that felt like a strong pull, and I was always really intrigued by just African culture. And I always had this, I learned, or at least was told, and how do we know what's really true here, but that all of us came from Africa.
Right.
The cradle of civilization is Africa. One of the oldest remains of a human would eventually evolve to where we are now as Homo sapiens came from the cradle of Africa. So I just had this feeling of like, I want to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
I want to get to the ground level. And I really wanted to see the world. I felt like I want to see the whole world.
Is that where you started? Did you start in Africa?
No, actually, from here in Gainesville, I went, and so the other part of my vision too really took on this idea of I wanted to become self-sufficient.
Okay.
And I wanted to learn how to grow my own food.
Oh, wow.
So I had this dream or vision that one day I would land on a piece of land, and because I did suffer some pretty traumatic trauma as a kid, I think that instilled this feeling in me of that the world was a bad place, or the world was going to go downhill.
Yeah.
That there was going to be some sort of nuclear explosion, or that there was going to be some sort of like breakdown of the entire system. The grids are going to go down. The ships are going down, and I wanted to be like ready to go. Like I had this really intense feeling that was going to happen, and I thought I have to get back to the earth. I have to learn how to take care of myself. So that put me on a quest to learn organic farming, and I went to Connecticut, and then I had a friend in Connecticut that let me stay with her, and I went to Long Island, and I got an apprenticeship on a farm in the middle of winter on Long Island where I'd never seen snow before because I grew up here in Florida. I brought my mountain bike, and I'm mountain biking on Long Island roads in the ice and the snow, going to the farm.
Doesn't work out too well, does it?
Big bags of horse manure, going out, spreading them out through these beds, and so I kind of quickly realized I'm not a winter guy. And then I had a chance or a lead to go to Northern California from my friend in Connecticut who took me in, and I did an apprenticeship on a man's farm, John Jevons's farm. He wrote a book called How to Grow as Much Vegetables on as Little Land as Possible, and he was like a research farmer where he would, pull the food out of the ground, weigh it, figure out what levels of fertilizer and what you needed to do organically to be able to get as much produce as possible.
Wow.
So he was really about just maximizing.
And you were working with him.
That was amazing. Now, I was not really ready to settle down on any level. So when I was like, I was like, I am traveling. And he was like, you need to make a decision, Todd. Are you going to hang here and do an apprenticeship here? And this is where my wanderlust it was insatiable. I couldn't stop. So.
And how old are you now?
At this point, I'm still 18. I guess I turned 19 somewhere in this little equation. Yeah, I think I'm 19 at this point. So my friend had a farm up in Northern California. I went and lived up in Mendocino for, I spent a year up there, up in the mountains, which was absolutely amazing. I have tons of stories from that period, but I'll jump forward to, I saved up some money, and I thought Hawaii. You know, I had a chance to go to Hawaii when I was younger and when between my 11th and 12th grade. So I had a friend that lived in Maui, and I took the money that I'd saved and I went to Maui and I bought a really cheap car for $500. I found a room and a house to rent up in Pukalani. And I started working at the Chart House down in Kahului. I worked cleaning the kitchen at Mama's Fish House on the North Shore of Maui. And I worked valet parking cars at the Grand Wailea over on the South Shore. And I had windsurfed growing up. I grew up skateboarding, windsurfing, and surfing. I lived on the beach. I lived for being in the ocean. So, and I was windsurfing and surfing all of the Maui North Shore and South Shore, and just having a really incredible experience. And I thought, this is where I'm going to stay. You know, this is it, man. Hawaii's the best. And after about a year, my Wanderlust kept kicking in. Ooh. And I thought, you know what? I really want to learn permaculture. A friend of mine that I'd met working on an organic farm in Maui, he said, have you ever heard of permaculture? I was like, what's that? It's a combination of the word permanent and agriculture. I'm like, well, where did that start? He said they have these permaculture farms in Australia. The founders of permaculture, Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, are from Australia. And I was like, Australia it is. Going to Australia. So I actually kept my car. I found a person that would let me keep my car on his property. And I flew to Sydney and I brought a surfboard and I hitchhiked and bus rode all the way up to a town called Bundaberg in Queensland, which was like not the place to go if you have a surfboard. The surf is all from Sydney up to Queensland, and I went a little bit northern Queensland to a place. But I found an organic banana farm that I went and worked on, and had an incredible experience. There's an organization called Woofing Willing Workers on Organic Farms.
What is that?
It's a list that anyone can go to, and it's online now. Then at the time there was no online, so there was no internet. Wow, that's a whole nother story, right? Like traveling the world internationally before the internet, where you had to get a map, you know, and chart your destinations.
It seems impossible. You know, knowing what you know now, what we know now.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how I'd get around without the internet.
I know, man.
I mean, I'm sure I did, but
so amazing. And you had no idea what you're getting into. There was no video to look up.
No images on
No, you bought maybe one of those like Fodder's book or one of those you know, those things when you were going to go travel. You'd buy a book from a country that had ideas of places to go, tell you where different youth hostels were.
But no videos,
you take the book with you.
Pictures,
it was so different. It was so different. It was amazing. And this is in 1993, 94 at this point. So I go and I take a permaculture design course in a place called Crystal Waters in Mullaney, which was an incredible experience. And I loved it so much. I took a second permaculture course. I did 2 permaculture design courses. And then I met a friend who had a Volkswagen Kombi van, old VW van. And he said, hey, man, I'm going up to the northeast of Queensland to Cairns. And so I went with him and we worked our way all the way up and worked at different farms on the way. Had some incredible experiences hanging, living with some of the Australian folk out in the middle of nowhere. And had some really interesting experiences. That was amazing. And then at that point, I came back down and decided, you know, I'm going back to that area and do another design course. And I'd met a girl, and then I went back to Hawaii. And because we thought maybe we should get together, I sold all my stuff in Hawaii and moved back to Australia, got a 6-month visa.
Wow.
And we toured and traveled all the way from East Coast, all the way southern across the Nullarbor Plain to Western Australia. My visa was running out. And somebody had this grand idea, hey, why don't you get married? And so we said, sure. So I'd actually married an Australian.
What better reason?
Day one after that didn't work out so good. But I stayed in Australia. She went off and did her thing. And I got a job working. I stayed on a woofing farm. Oh yeah, so back to woofing. Woofing, willing workers on organic farms. What it is you inquire with a farm where they say, hey, I have this farm. So for example, the farm that I ended up going to, it was like, we have this 80-acre farm on the coast of Western Australia, and we have a vegetable garden. We have a couple of animals. My husband is a large animal vet, and you can come and stay I would go, you call them up, you show up. If you get along with them and they let you stay, they give you food and accommodation, and you work a few hours for them at their farm. Huh. And it's just a work trade. There's no money exchange.
So you did that?
Yeah. I did that all over the world, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was how I was able to travel on such a shoestring budget. Because, I mean, I was working, I did not have any funds coming my way from any.
There was no income.
Yeah,
there was no
once I left school, my parents were like, great, Todd, you're off. Have fun. You're not getting any help from us. And I was like, cool, I'm on my own. I want to prove that I'm a man of the world. I can do this. Yeah. And so I stayed with them, and that was incredible. And I ended up living in that southwest area of Western Australia for 5 years. And so I worked and lived
with them. Were you with them the entire 5 years?
No, a lot happened. I mean, over the 5 years, I lived in Yallingup. I lived in Margaret River. I lived in Quarmup. I lived in these are all towns in the southwest of Australia. What an amazing place and time in the world. And I love the Australian people, and I'm so grateful for the way that they opened their arms and just took me in and just treated me so well. And I have just such a soft place in my heart for Western Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now I had this dream and vision of working on organic farms, and that is great, but you don't make money doing that unless you're like a pro farmer, with land of your own.
So you're just doing
and
it
you
for
got
food
some backing
and for lodging.
And yeah, I'm just wanting to travel and learn and just see the world type of thing and learn as much as I can. So I got to work with a organic seed collector in Bustleton, which is in on the Cape. And she was an amazing woman, and she taught me how to grow organic seed, collect them, and we'd sell. I just kind of helped her with her whole business and selling that. At the time, I still didn't have a car. I still didn't have permanent residency. I didn't have a tax ID number, so I had to work all under the table. Sure. I have a really, I appreciate immigrants. I appreciate the work immigrants do.
Yeah.
I appreciate how hard it is. I appreciate what it's like to live without being able to work a legit job. It's really hard. And in Western Australia, it's a primary producing country, meaning they have a lot of wool and beef and mining and ore mining. It's like, and they have a lot of incredible stuff, but they it's like very farm culture, very rural where I was. All there was were dairy farms and vineyards.
Wow.
I mean, we're way out in the countryside. Margaret River was such a small town back at this time period in 94.
Was there any thought, did you have any thought about starting your own farm? You've been doing this for a while now.
Like currently? Do I want to do that now?
Back,
or at the
back
time?
then. Back then.
Yeah, money was the problem.
Okay.
People were like, Todd, you're from America, why don't you just ask somebody there for money? And I'm like, dude, no one just gives you money, man.
And there's no GoFundMe pages then, is there?
No, there's no GoFundMe pages. I didn't have deep pockets. I had no pockets. I literally had no pockets. I think at the time I might have had maybe like $1,000 in the bank.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm only going to spend what I earn. So if I earned $20 for the day, I lived off $20, you know?
Right.
And so then I realized, well, this woofing stuff is great. And I finally got my tax ID number. And I decided, and then I was like, I need a job. So then I got a job for Margaret River Tree Planting and Land Care Services. And thank you, Mr. Rankin, for giving me a job and just believing in me. And and again, I had big old long dreads and a big old beard. So all these folks are kind of like, who in the heck is this guy, man? He's a total hippie. Yeah. He's from the States, but I was a really hard worker. One thing that my family and my culture and country instilled in me is a work ethic that I'm very proud of. Yeah. I worked my butt off. I worked so hard physically. I worked for one time. So for 5 years, I did blue gum plantations where we would show up to these farms that were being converted from old sheep farms, because in Western Australia, you have a salinity issue. What happened back in the 40s and 50s there is a program where it's basically clear as much trees as possible. And when you have trees and you have a very ancient soil that exists in Australia, the roots go down so low that it keeps the salt levels deep. And so when you remove all the trees, the salt comes up to the surface and nothing can grow.
Right.
So once the soil became so depleted, these farmers were just like, couldn't even grow anything because this is like desert. Like in the winter, it rains, it's green, but during the summer, it's dry.
Wow.
Dry.
Wow.
So I worked, there was a company called Bunnings that was basically funded by the Japanese to grow pulp so that they'd have toilet paper and paper products. So it wasn't exactly the reforestation projects that I envisioned in terms of reforesting to kind of let the earth regenerate. But we got to make baby steps in this process, in my opinion, in terms of stewardship for the earth, right? So and I took the job and I got paid and we worked our butts off, and, you're planting in the winter when it's cold, and I had, you're wearing a rain jacket and rain pants, gum boots, like those big old galoshes type stuff. Yeah. And, you're walking all day long for about 8 hours a day, just going tree after tree after tree after tree. And it's backbreaking work, brutal work. My knees were killing me. Because I had that horrible wipeout when I was a kid, my back.
Still feeling the results of that fall.
I still, I was still so young at that point. I mean, I was in my early 20s. I wasn't even 21. Yeah, so I was in my early 20s. This is from like age 20 to 25, 20 to 24. So I tell you all that because at one point I tweaked my neck so bad, I couldn't move, I couldn't lay, I couldn't sit. And somebody said, dude, I know this physiotherapist, which is like the equivalent of a physical therapist, and down in Margaret River, and I went, and he used a combination of needles, dry needling, and manual soft tissue therapies, and he fixed me.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I really hope that you're enjoying this episode, and I just wanted to take a moment to announce a course that I'm really excited to release. It's a free course, and it's called 8 in 8, Learn 8-Limb Yoga in 8 days. My goal is to help coach you along in the Ashtanga yoga practice in a way where we take just the sun salutations, the fundamental asanas, and the final breathing poses, break it down with some philosophy videos as well, explaining the 8 limbs of Ashtanga yoga in a very easy to use, friendly course that is totally free. Click the link below, check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Whoa.
Quickly, I felt great, and it blew me away. And that was my first kind of like, wow, what is this world of body work? Whoa, this is really cool. And I knew because I was working physically so hard, and my relationship was coming to a close,
right.
And it was, very evident and apparent that that wasn't going to work. And the grass is always greener, pink-eyed goggle view of Australia as the land of where I want to live the rest of my life, came crashing down.
Okay.
So,
yeah, time to go.
The house of cards came down.
Okay.
And so that was probably one of the most difficult decisions I ever had to make, because I knew when I left I was going to be leaving officially for good. Even though I had permanent residency, I really knew I had this idea that I would travel back to the States and live for a few months, then come back to Australia and live a few months, then travel back to the States, and I would somehow get this lifestyle going where I'd be kind of like snowbirding around the world.
Yeah, it's a little tough, isn't it?
But again, I had pie dreams on a budget that wasn't really going to support that. Yeah. And there's a whole waking up to reality aspect of the grandeur of the young to the reality and the wisdom of the old.
Sure.
That process that I was going through, those growing pains, Yeah. I have tons of stories I could dip into and give you many files and stories here, but I'm just kind of scratching the surface of how I got to where I am here now. And so, all right. So I decided at that point, I'm like, you know what? This isn't going to work. I can't see myself doing this really hardcore manual labor for very long, or for the rest of my life anyway. So I really thought I want to learn massage therapy. I want to become a body worker.
From that, the treatment that you received in Australia, you decided that's what you might want to do.
Mm-hmm. And so I traveled back to here, and I just kind of I'm leaving Australia. I came back here and I found a school in Miami, and I went to Miami and I enrolled at a place called Educating Hands down on Brickell. And this was in 2000.
Okay.
So 25 years ago. And I got my license in massage therapy and realized that, I need to get a divorce. I can't move on.
You haven't gotten the
until
divorce
I do
yet.
that. Okay. So in the process, I'd bought an around the world ticket and went to, so here I was like, all right, let me continue to travel. And, without going into all the details of all of this, but throughout this process of going back and forth between the States and Australia, I got a chance to travel all through Indonesia and surf in Bali and surf on Sumbawa at Lakey Peak, and had a chance to go to Fiji. And
these are just pleasure trips. You're not working. You're just...
These are a combination of, what I would do is when I would come back here, I would do landscape maintenance here in Palm Beach County and valet park cars. Jeez. So I'd work valet parking cars down in Palm Beach, and then and in North Palm Beach at the different steakhouses and the really fancy places, and just work my butt off in the winter season. Mm-hmm. And then I also even did landscape maintenance here, working with the Guatemalans, and that was an incredible experience. And that really helped me to understand and appreciate, because I was never shy to do hard work, and I really love working with the earth and any kind of gardening, and I'd gotten a ton of experience in Australia, and I got a ton of experience here. I got to work in fruit orchards and olive orchards. I worked in an olive orchard in Italy, and I spent 3 months working in an olive orchard in an organic garden farm in Italy.
How long were you in Italy?
I spent 3 months total, 6 weeks in Grosseto and 6 weeks in a place called Montalcino.
Oh, yeah,
and that was amazing.
Beautiful area.
Oh, a beautiful. I went to Firenze and went and saw the art, went to Rome, and I finally had a chance to go to Africa, and I flew to Zimbabwe, and I was going to work on I wanted to try to work on a woofing farm. And again, please, I know people listening might think, wow, somebody sponsored Todd and gave him a ton of money. No, I worked my ass off, and I traveled on the smallest amount of money possible.
That's the amazing thing,
really
because you're right. Because when you hear of these places that you're going to, it's like,
because I know there's a lot of folks that, you get a trust fund and you go, I'm just going to go. I did not do it that way.
Dad, can I have some more money? I want to go to Fiji.
That did not happen. Now, my parents did help me out when I would land here and let me either stay with them in their house.
Okay.
I mean, I would always try to find somewhere to live. I didn't want to do that, but they were kind and generous in that respect. Sure. But as far as helping on the level of, let me give you money, I took loans out to go to massage therapy school. I paid those loans back. Yeah. And then when I went to Africa, I landed in Zimbabwe, and I backpacked by myself from Zimbabwe, took buses on the local buses up through Mozambique and went to Malawi. I climbed up Mount Mulanje. When I got to Mount Mulanje, I met this doctor that was an African doctor that was trained in London, but he decided to come back to Africa to serve his people. And he said, oh, you want to see the real Africa? And I'm all like, yeah. Show me the real Africa. So he goes, let me take you to this hospital that I used to work at. And I went to this hospital. And at the time, they told me that 7/10 of the population in Malawi had the HIV virus. Ooh. And that is a really intense realization when you walk through a country where you see, Africa is amazing. Africa is so amazing. Oh my gosh, man. I love the African people. Oh my gosh, I love the African people. They are so amazing. The culture there, and it's a rough place, man. I found myself in situations where I thought, another near-death experiences where I thought, this is it. I'm dead, man. And no, it was a lot of times when you're culturally privileged and you go to a place that isn't of the same level of privilege, we carry the fear that maybe I won't be treated well. And what I found is that if you come with a humble heart and you come in with true humility, that privilege falls away and people open up and they share what they have. And
you had those experiences.
I had those experiences in Africa. I stayed with Africans in village-like settings.
How long were you there? How long were you in Africa?
I was there. How long was I in Africa? I planned to go for 6 months, and I think I made it a little over 1 month, because the turning point for me was when I got to Malawi, I hand wrote a letter and I shipped it off. That was the only way to get the letter to the woofing farm. And now I realize when I was, where was I? Is that in Malanje in Malawi? I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to hear back from this guy. I don't even know if my letter's ever going to make it to him. I don't even know if the farm is still in operation. So I'm just waiting in Malanje, buying time. And that's when I decided, let me go climb Mount Malanje. And in the process, that was incredible. That was amazing. And when this guy took me to the hospital, there was 3 patients per bed, 2 sleeping on the floor under, 1 on the bed, and they would rotate every 8 hours. Each person would get. So when you see people dying of HIV and you go into a hospital where everybody, their eyes are just, they stare at you through eyes of like right through your soul.
Right. Yeah.
It hit me so hard.
Yeah.
I had this feeling of like, what am I doing? If I can't help, well, first of all, how can I possibly help? What can I do to help? I couldn't think of anything other than potentially volunteer for an aid organization. But then I remember meeting different people working in aid organizations where I saw levels of corruption that were so heavy.
Oh, you did, yeah.
That I thought, I'm not organized right now to do that. And I'm not a doctor. Like if I had a skill.
Correct.
And I was trying to work with permaculture and organic farming, but let's just be honest. I mean, that takes so much. There's so much to making that work, and where people want your help, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And then even have the ability to help, and then to have the long-term strategy. I realized I was way out of my league.
In the permaculture, in that
in that
farming,
avenue, and then and in Africa, and then when I saw that, I don't know, I just hadn't encountered death in that way. Where, you hear that story about the Buddha coming out of the kingdom and like him realizing, whoa, this is suffering, and which caused him to want to find the solution. I feel like that might have been my Buddha moment coming out of my nice little existence and realizing, whoa,
this is misery. This is suffering.
There's more. And so I had to reformulate. And so I decided I'm going back, and I made my way all the way back down to Zimbabwe, and I flew out. And so other places along those journeys, and I learned, I feel like I got my teeth cut in Africa a little bit more, because when I wanted to go to India, I felt like, all right, I've heard a lot of stories about India, how challenging that can be. And I thought, all right, well, I've done some hard places, some like, and also you see people like, oh, I went to Africa. It was amazing. Yeah. We had white table linen cloths out on the safari savannah. And, I had a nice like Land Cruiser deliver me out there with this high-end camping. And, man, no, that wasn't the way
that's
I was
not
doing
the way, you didn't find that.
I wasn't spending the money to have that.
Of course not.
I didn't buy my luxury. I roughed it. So, that was incredible. More stories from there, but let me keep going on. So, okay, let me back up to where I led you with, okay, I got to go back to Australia, get a divorce. I got a divorce. I got that all kind of wrapped up for the most part. There's a lot more to that story. And I come back to the States, and all right, I'm like, you know what? I love body work. And my mom was like, Todd, you got to come. When I was going to massage school, she's like, you got to come do some yoga with me. And I'm like, oh, yoga. I got to do some yoga when I was with the Hare Krishnas.
With your mom?
I got to do some yoga when I was out in Western Australia. I took some Iyengar yoga classes. I did some Hatha yoga classes in Gainesville as well. And at this point, I was really intrigued about meditation yoga through Paramahansa Yogananda. I read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And I was like, my mind was like going, whoa, okay. This is the next level for me to kind of take the journey toward. And so my mom said, you got to come to yoga with me. I said, yeah, Mom, of course. So I went with her to a Bikram yoga class, and I loved it. I got my butt kicked. It was exactly what I needed.
What did you like? What was it that you...
I liked the heat.
Okay.
I liked the intensity of the heat. I liked the physicality of the challenge of the asana. I liked the physicality and the challenge of the asana, but the mental determination required to get through every class. I liked the fact that I was cleaning up my life in relation to getting a little bit more of a better routine about going to bed early.
Okay.
And it gave me focus to have the yoga practice, intense practice in the morning to be able to practice massage therapy as my career and profession. And then the philosophical component fit perfectly, in my opinion, for my desire to deepen my understanding of the meaning of my existence.
Were you working in the massage field?
So and another thing the strategy I've always taken, that if I'm going to invest money in learning something, I want to make that same amount of money back in the thing that I learned.
Right.
When I took my permaculture courses, I was like, I'm going to work in permaculture and make that money back. I didn't want to just like take courses and not use them.
Right.
I didn't want to just take classes and then just go to the next thing.
Break even.
So my whole thing was like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to actually turn it into a way of making money and bring it back in.
Sure.
And that really is what trained me to learn how to do what I love and learn and earn making off to earn a living doing what I love, which is a hard step. It's really hard to do that. It takes a lot of guts to do that. I never really knew if I could pull that off. You know, when I was working for other people in Australia, I always thought, I gotta figure out how to be my own boss. You know, that was really extremely important to me. I put that on high priority for me. I wasn't sure I was going to pull that off, but what I loved about massage therapy is I could have my table, I could show up at your house, I didn't need to have any overhead, and I could start earning directly from the work that I did. And it is a form of manual labor, without a doubt. I mean, I traded one form of manual labor for another form of manual labor, but at least in this direction, I felt like I could use my intellect a little bit more.
Sure.
And I loved learning about the body, about the anatomy, physiology. I really and was engrossed in that. And I felt like when I started practicing the Hatha yoga, you know, I was introduced more into the Bhakti yoga culture of yoga, which is a yoga of devotion and chanting and using mantra. And so when I came into the Hatha yoga component of the Bikram yoga, I felt like it just solidified everything for me. And so I dove head in and I took 2 classes a day, at least every day, or 2 classes a day. And I was practicing massage therapy.
And you're in Florida now, right?
I'm in Florida. I'm in Tequesta. I'm living here in Tequesta. And at that point, I had met somebody, and you know, I had this dream of I had asked somebody. They had asked me, what type of massage are you going to learn? And I said, actually, let me get my timeline right here. What is the order of the operations? I feel like what happened here is, in the process of getting ready to go back to Australia to finalize some of my loose ends, I also incorporated a trip to Thailand to study Thai massage. And I went to Chiang Mai. I traveled all around Thailand. That was, sorry, I didn't insert that in, but that was around about the Indonesia trip, going to Bali. I went to Thailand and I got a chance to study with a Thai massage master in Chiang Mai named Chongkol Setakorn at a school called ITM in northern Thailand in Chiang Mai. And that for me was a huge synthesis, because I'd started practicing yoga when I was the Hatha yoga, the Bikram yoga, while I was going to the massage school. I was loving body work and I was loving practicing yoga. And someone said, what do you want to learn? And I said, I don't know. They said, well, have you ever heard of Thai massage? I said, what's that? They said, it's the blend of yoga and body work. And I was like, boom, the light bulb went off. So when I got to Thailand, I've just absolutely fell in love with the Thai people and the Thai culture and Thai massage. I did my course.
How long were you there?
I was in 6 weeks in Thailand. I spent, I think, studying Thai massage. Somewhere it's like between a month to 6 weeks. And that was absolutely amazing. Chongkol Setakorn is just such an incredible teacher. I love you, Chongkol. And thank you. And I fell in love with Thai massage, and I knew then and there, this is what I'm going to now. I mean, you know, everything is like you learn something and you refine it and you grow that and you learn something new and you pull that into the fold and you slowly build one step, one layer, one at a time. And at this point, it was just, for me, it was just chasing my passion. and trying to build it up as a business as I would go so that I could afford to do what I wanted to learn, but also afford to live and, vice versa.
At least you've got a vision now.
I had a vision.
You kind of look like you've had all these experiences around the world.
I knew what I wanted to do.
And you found it.
I found it. And at this point, it was pretty clear that I wanted to be a yoga teacher and I wanted to practice Thai massage. And so after coming back from that whole trip, practicing Thai massage, still practicing yoga, my Bikram yoga teacher said, Todd, you should do Bikram yoga teacher training. And I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of like still not really knowing about Bikram and Ashtanga and Iyengar. I mean, I heard those words as I was going along, but I didn't understand what that really meant to have a guru
the differences
and to have a lineage and a difference between.
Yeah.
I didn't do any research on Bikram. I had no idea what I was getting into. And,
oh boy.
And yeah, man, exactly. So I take off to go to Bikram yoga teacher training in California, in Beverly Hills. Had to get a loan, took out a loan from the bank to pay for it. It was about a $7,000 training, $5,000 for the training, $2,000 for accommodation.
Right.
And oh my gosh, maybe what I'll do, I'll tell you this story fast speed.
Okay.
And then I could go back and fill in gaps. At some other time. I want to try to nail this in an hour.
I know we've got 1 hour.
All right.
But there's so much more that I want to hear.
There's so much to each of these stories.
Can we do like 30-minute segments after this 1 hour and just kind of like roll these out?
Great idea. If people are interested, if you want to hear more stories, reach out, email me, send me a message. And I'll keep going. If you're like, I don't want to hear about Todd, don't email me.
I've heard enough.
Give me feedback. All right.
Oh, yeah,
so,
I like that.
Bikram yoga teacher training. Holy cow. What a man. What an animal. Oh, what an intense challenge.
Yeah.
So that being said, I come back. I get a job. No. Before I go to Bikram teacher training, I got to back up because this is probably the most important detail of my life. Is I met my wife Tamara working I got a job at a spa doing massage therapy in Boynton Beach, and I come in and there's Tamara working the front desk as the manager
in Boynton, and
she's in Boynton Beach, and she was the esthetician and the manager, and she was doing facials. And man, I think I just got to give Tamara credit because I would not be here now mentally, emotionally, the incredible children that we have together, the business that we've been able to build and grow over the last 19 years here at Native Yoga Center. I mean, she's the love of my life. She's my soulmate.
Yeah.
And she's really gotten me through some really incredibly tough times, and her just steadiness and her humor and her just ease with life and the way that she's just been the greatest partner I could ever dream of. I met her. I met my soulmate.
Yeah.
I went through the ringer. Man. I really did. I went through the ringer. But I just knew when I met her, I knew I found what I'd been dreaming of. And so when we met and I was like, you got to come to Bikram yoga. And she started practicing yoga with me. And then I had already been planning to go do the training. So I went to the training. I came back and I was so blown away. I said, Tamara, you got to go do it. She's like, all right. And she went out there and she did it. And she came back and we got an offer to run the Bikram yoga studio in Mira Mesa, San Diego through Karen and Mark Drost. Thank you, Karen and Mark. That was an incredible opportunity. There's so many people that I could bring up and just thank along my journey. And I apologize to anybody that I did not name because there's hundreds of you. So, but I'm very grateful to Karen and Mark, and they gave us the opportunity to co-own with them Bikram Yoga Mira Mesa in San Diego. We went out to San Diego, and I'm practicing massage therapy, and we're teaching yoga classes there. I got to integrate and meet all of Tamara's family, her grandfather, her uncle, her aunt, her cousins.
Her family's from
she was born and raised in Newport Beach area.
Oh, okay.
And we had the best time living out in California and exploring Baja and going surfing all over California and going snowboarding up in Mammoth. And man, I love California.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely amazing. And at that point, I want to say in 2005, we just hit this point of like, we got to get out of Bikram yoga. And let me back up. 2004, I was like, Tamara, there's got to be a little bit more to this. And I really want to go to India. And she's like, let's do it. And we went to India and we practiced. We did a round the world trip where we went there. We went back to Australia. I again tried to type a few loose ends there. That's a long story.
With Tamara? She was with
Tamara.
Okay.
I took her to Western Australia, showed her my stomping grounds in Margaret River.
Oh.
We went to Thailand together. I got to continue my studies and training with my teacher, Chung Kal, and she studied Thai massage with me in Chiang Mai. And then from there, we went back to southern Thailand, and we took our first Ashtanga class with Rolf Naujakat down in Koh Phangan. Love you, Rolf. Rolf passed away. Rolf, I know you're listening to me right now. If I could call you from heaven down right now, thank you, Rolf. Oh my gosh. And then Rolf set us on course, man. Rolf set us right on course. And we went to India and we studied with Patabi Joyce and Sharat.
Was that your first Ashtanga class?
With Rolf, yeah. In Koh Phangan. Oh my God, that was, oh my gosh.
How'd that feel? That feel different from the Bikram?
Yeah, well, that story. So Rolf is in the middle of nowhere in a bamboo bungalow on stilts on a hill where they said, okay, by the time we took the train from Bangkok down to Surat Thani, the overnight boat from Surat Thani to Koh Phangan. You take the taxi from Koh Phangan to Had Rin. You take the boat from Had Rin all the way around to Had Wai Nam. There's no cars. You get your backpack out. We go to the sanctuary there. You can't stay here. We go to the next place. You can't stay here. Then we go to Had Rin. We find a place to stay in this incredible bungalow in the jungle on the island of Koh Phangan. For those of you that watched The White Lotus, we were there at that beach, one of those beaches. It was filmed in Koh Samui and Koh Phangan. And someone's like, okay, go to the rock, make a right, go up to the tree, climb that trail, come up, and you're going to see a hut. And we come up, and all we hear is like, Ujjayi breathing. We hear thunk, feet coming on the ground of the bamboo. We're like, what's going on up there? We look up, we peek our heads up, we crawl up the ladder, we peek our heads up, we look at, and all these people from around the world doing first, second, third, fourth series, handstanding, legs behind head, contortion yoga. We looked at each other, we said, well, let's get out of here. This is crazy. We are in the wrong place. This is the most advanced yoga group. Nothing like Bikram yoga can't even touch.
Right, no way.
What was going on in the Ashtanga world and what we saw, and the energy. The energy was so dynamic
compared to the Bikram.
It was a time in history where I am so grateful. I'm so grateful, John, that I had a chance. It was like, I mean, that's where, here where he'd been here 19 years, I draw upon that every day when I show up. Yeah, because it was just so magical. It was the energy was so raw and real, and the people were so amazing. I love the Ashtanga community. So then we went to India. We got to study with Patabi Joyce and Sharat, who both have passed away as well now. I mean, I feel so grateful to have the opportunity to hang with Patabi Joyce, man. And
how long did you spend there?
We spent a month practicing with them in Mysore. So we were a month with Rolf and Koh Phangan, a month in India with Patabi Joyce, and then on the way home, from India, we had incredible adventures there. We went to Spain, landed in Madrid, and went to a restaurant, and we went to the bathroom. We're like, there's toilet paper, woohoo! And then we came back to Miami and visited my family. Went back to California and realized, you know what? Let's open our own studio in Juno Beach, Florida. Let's come back to Palm Beach County. Let's set up shop here. This is where I'm from. This is where I was born. Tamara's on board. We did it. We came back, and 19 years ago, we opened up in 2006, and you and I are sitting in the same room that we opened up on that side of the room over there, and then we built this one in 2009. And we've been here. We just celebrated our 19-year anniversary in this place.
You know
here.
Better than I do. Studios don't last 19 years. Most yoga studios cannot last 19 years unless there's something really special about that studio.
Well, thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
I've been practicing for a while, and I see studios come and go within a year. And to stick around for 19 years, with your soulmate working with you. I mean, that's a blessing. That's
I know, man.
You've done an incredible job here. Incredible job.
Well, thank you, John. And having you and Mandy here is like, you guys have been so supportive. And ever since I started this podcast 5 years ago, I started at March 27th on my daughter's birthday, my daughter Priya's birthday.
Right.
On March 27th of 2020, when the world was falling apart. And this was a rehabilitative project for me.
Yeah.
I got a chance to reach out to the international community because, when you stay local in one little spot after you travel the world, you want to be all over the world.
Right.
And this avenue has given me an opportunity to connect with professionals in this field from all over the world. I think this will be like episode number 220 or so.
Incredible.
219, 220. And so, for me, it's a labor of love because yoga is my life. Yoga and meditation has pulled me from the abyss, from that moment when I landed on my back and I, was struggling through a really traumatic event and events in my past and my childhood, and to now be able to look back and say, I'm here. There's a purpose. I'm here for a reason. I've gone through believing in God. I've gone through not believing in God. I've gone through every type of different meditation technique and every facet of yoga philosophy I can come across, from Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism. I try to study and read and learn and meditate and process every day of my life. Yeah. I woke up this morning at 5 and practiced meditation and had one of the deepest, most profound meditative experiences of my life this morning. No joke.
Really?
No joke.
Wow.
I mean, it was, I'll save that for another story, but I think there's this stuff is real, man. This stuff works.
Yeah.
I promise you. Yeah. And it will pull you through the darkest of the darkest, and it'll take you to the highest of the high. I mean, and you can do it all completely sober.
Right.
I've had my bouts of experimentation of all sorts of different things, and I really keep coming back to yoga and meditation and body work and just so I guess that is that's my life in a nutshell. And I wanted to make it brief and concise, but also try to convey some of why I do what I do, why I'm here, and why I'm not giving up.
No, you can tell
not
that
I'm going to give up. I'm not thinking about giving up, but we have challenges. We have big challenges here and there, but like everybody does.
I was going to say, you're not alone with those challenges.
So don't give up.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't give up.
Yeah.
And strive to find your personal truth and start exactly where you are. You do not have to travel the world. Everything is right here inside of us.
I was just going to mention that.
It is not out there. It is not in another country.
Your experience traveling the world didn't necessarily have to be to get to where you are today.
Agreed.
I mean, it did, but you could do it without traveling the world.
You don't have to go and try to find a guru. You don't have to go and try to find the perfect paradise to live in. You make it where you are.
What would you suggest?
You are your own guru.
If somebody came to you and said, Todd, how do I start? I just listened to your podcast. Incredible experience what you've done and created. But how do I start?
I would say just wherever you are right now, close your eyes and begin meditating.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
Don't really even try to look for, if you're going to need guidance, maybe you might not. I get guidance from people. I get lots of guidance. I'm constantly seeking guidance.
Yeah.
So I'd say we need guidance. I take that back.
I think it's the only way to grow.
I pray for help and guidance every day.
Yeah.
But I also believe it's got to come from within. And it can come from within. So I think that, and then once you sit and you meditate and you're like, okay, I have my eyes closed or my eyes open, and I'm just like really feeling and aware that I'm conscious, I'm a conscious being, then that's really it. I mean, it's like, that's the starting point.
That's the starting point.
That's the starting point.
It just grows from there.
And it just depends on how far and wide you want to go.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Cool, man.
Todd, thanks so much for sitting
Yeah.
down with me today.
Yeah, John. Well,
I guess
thank
the
you
only
for
the only
facilitating this.
the only
You
problem
put a lot of time and energy in. You and I have been working, talking to each other, interviewing like this for hours.
Yeah.
And we had accumulated so much information that I had this feeling of like, it's going to take me forever to publish all this and to skim through it. And also the process that you've taken me through to get to this point today has been extremely therapeutic because I'm seeing my story from a different angle now. And I'm able to like process it in a different way. And having the chance to talk to you has helped me to reformulate my vision or my view of my narrative and understand my narrative. And it is a narrative. So, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. We all have our narratives. So once you become aware of your narrative and you start telling I'm telling my story, you tell your story, we all can tell our story. Yeah. It gets clear. And I think that's very therapeutic. So I'm very grateful for you all the time you've invested with me.
It's been a pleasure. Because your stories are intriguing to me. And that's one of the things that, we have in our show here today, which is going to, be great, but there's more because I think your listeners, I think your students are going to really appreciate getting to know you a little bit better through this 1 hour. But I think they may be as curious as I am as to what really happened in Australia, what really happened in Africa, what did you learn in Thailand and in India, and maybe some additional shows down the road to dive a little bit deeper into those experiences that you had that really brought you to here. I think it'd be really cool.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Todd, thanks so much for being
man.
sitting together today, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Native Yoga Toddcast is produced by myself. The theme music is dreamed up by Bryce Allen. If you like this show, let me know. If there's room for improvement, I want to hear that too. We are curious to know what you think and what you want more of, what I can improve. And if you have ideas for future guests or topics, please send us your thoughts to info@Native Yoga Center. You can find us at nativeyogacenter.com. And hey, if you did like this episode, share it with your friends, rate it and review, and join us next time.